One of the most dangerous mistakes in dentistry is not choosing the wrong material, technique, or piece of equipment. It is reaching the point where you know something is no longer working, yet you continue simply because you have already invested too much time, money, energy, or personal reputation in it. In economics, there is a simple term for this: sunk cost. A sunk cost is something you have already spent and cannot recover. The problem begins when we allow that past investment to influence the decision we make today, even though the decision should be based on what will benefit us in the future. In dental practice, this happens far more often than we realize. You may have bought expensive equipment that is rarely used. You may have invested thousands of dollars in training for a procedure you do not actually enjoy performing. You may have been working for years with someone who constantly creates problems. You may be keeping an employee who simply does not fit the team. You may continue paying for a marketing campaign that does not bring in patients. You may keep using software everyone hates simply because implementing it was expensive. Or you may continue trying to develop a particular part of your practice even though the results have been showing for a long time that the idea is not working. And every time, the same thought appears: I can't stop now. I've already invested too much. That is exactly the sentence that should concern you. Imagine that 2 years ago you bought a piece of equipment you were convinced would transform your practice. You paid a significant amount of money for it, completed the training, promoted the new service, and spent your team's time implementing it. 2 years later, the equipment is used only a few times a month. Patients are not showing enough interest. Maintenance costs are increasing. The staff dislikes using it. The financial results are poor. But instead of asking, does this equipment still make sense for my practice today? You think, after everything I paid for it, I have to keep using it. That sounds rational, but it is not. The money you paid 2 years ago cannot be recovered whether you use the equipment for another month or another 10 years. The real question is not how much you have already invested. The real question is, if I did not own this equipment today, would I buy it again? That is one of the most useful questions a dental practice owner can ask. The same principle applies to employees. Suppose you have a team member who has been creating problems for years. You have invested time in training them. You have had multiple conversations. You have changed schedules. You have given additional chances. Other employees complain, but you keep thinking, we have invested so much time in this person. It would be a shame to lose them now. But the last 3 years are not a reason to sacrifice the next 3. You need to ask a different question: if this person applied for a job today, and I knew everything I know now, would I hire them again? If the answer is a clear no, you need to seriously consider why the past has so much power over your present decision. The sunk cost trap is not proof that someone is a poor manager. In fact, highly capable and persistent people often fall into it. Dentists are trained to solve problems. When something does not work, we try again. We adjust the plan. We change the approach. We learn a new technique. We look for another solution. That is an enormous professional strength. But the same persistence can become a weakness when we apply it to something that no longer makes sense. There is a big difference between perseverance and stubbornly refusing to admit that a particular path is no longer taking us where we want to go. Sometimes continuing is not courage. Sometimes courage means stopping. A major part of the problem is our ego. The more personally connected we are to a decision, the harder it becomes to admit that it was not a good one. If we were the person who insisted on buying new equipment, hiring a particular employee, opening a second practice, or launching a new service, walking away is no longer just a business decision. It begins to feel like an admission: I was wrong. And that is when something dangerous happens. Instead of trying to protect the practice from a bad decision, we begin trying to protect our own ego. We add more money, more time, more energy, one more chance. Not because new evidence shows that the plan will succeed, but because we want the original decision to eventually look correct. But a bad decision does not become better simply because we have defended it for a long time. One of the most important principles is allowing ourselves to make mistakes. Admitting a poor decision quickly can be far less costly than spending years trying to prove that it was not actually a mistake. We should be less concerned with saving face and more concerned with the cost of continuing with an unsatisfactory plan. The sunk cost trap can also appear in clinical work, although here we must be especially careful. When treating patients, decisions obviously cannot be based solely on financial logic. The primary considerations must always be the patient's best interests, professional standards, clinical condition, and ethical obligations. But the psychological pattern can still be the same. We may have invested a great deal of time in a particular treatment plan. Things are not progressing as expected. And we may become emotionally attached to the original decision simply because we were the ones who made it. In such situations, professional maturity means being able to reassess the situation without feeling the need to defend our previous decision. The most important question is not, how can I prove that my original plan was correct, but rather, what is best for the patient now? The same principle can be applied to an entire career. I know dentists who spend years doing work they no longer enjoy simply because they have already invested so many years in it. I specialized in this. I bought the equipment. I built my reputation around it. Patients know me for this. All of those things may be true. But none of them automatically means that you have to spend the next 10 years doing exactly the same thing. A major professional mistake is confusing the goal with the particular method we originally chose to reach that goal. Perhaps your real goal is to build a high-quality practice, achieve professional satisfaction, create financial stability, or have more time for your family. A particular service, location, business model, or type of patient is simply one possible route toward that goal. If that route is no longer working, changing direction does not mean abandoning the goal. Quite the opposite. It may mean that you are finally taking the goal seriously enough to protect it. That is why it can be useful to periodically conduct a brutally simple review of your practice. Look at your equipment, your employees, your suppliers, your marketing, your software, your procedures, your subscriptions, your continuing education, your business partnerships, the way you organize your time. And for every important area, ask the same question: if I were starting from zero today, with everything I know now, would I make the same decision again? If the answer is yes, continue. If the answer is I'm not sure, analyze it carefully. If the answer is clearly no, then ask yourself why you are still continuing. Very often, you will discover that the answer has nothing to do with the future. Because I already paid for it. Because we have already worked so hard on it. Because we have been together for so long. Because I told everyone it would succeed. Because I don't want it to look like I made a mistake. Those are all explanations about the past. A business decision needs to be focused on the future. There is another cost of the sunk cost trap that we often fail to see: opportunity cost, what we are missing while trying to rescue something that is not working. Every hour you spend on a project with no future is an hour you cannot spend on something better. Every dollar you invest in a failing strategy is money that is not available for a new opportunity. Every year spent in a business model that exhausts you is a year you did not invest in something that might have been far more successful. In dentistry, time may be even more valuable than money. Sometimes you can recover money. You can never recover time. That is why it is useful to periodically analyze where your hours are really going and identify activities that consume time without moving you closer to your goals. Of course, none of this means you should quit as soon as something becomes difficult. Every serious career, dental practice, or project goes through periods when results are not immediately visible. A new service takes time. A new employee requires training. Marketing requires testing. Skills require practice. The question is not, is this difficult? The question is, are there real reasons to believe that continuing will produce a better result? That is a major difference. Productive persistence is based on evidence that progress is being made or that meaningful improvement is realistically possible. Sunk cost persistence says, I have to continue because I have already invested too much. One looks forward. The other looks backward. Perhaps one of the most mature decisions a dentist can make is not starting something new, but stopping something old. Selling the equipment. Ending a bad partnership. Changing the system. Discontinuing a service that no longer makes sense. Changing the way you work. Admitting that a particular idea simply did not succeed. That is not failure. Failure is knowing that something is not working and continuing for another 5 years simply because you have already spent the previous 5 years on it. So the next time you hear yourself saying, I can't stop now. I've already invested too much, pay attention. That may be exactly the moment when you need to ask the opposite question. If I ignore everything I have already invested and look only at what lies ahead from today onward, would I still choose the same path? If the answer is no, your past may be trying to steal your future.